All right, let's jump right in. We're about to explore this incredible intellectual tradition that goes back thousands of years, and it's one that puts thinking, questioning, and learning right at the absolute center of life. This isn't about some kind of magic. It's about a very specific architecture of the mind. And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, look at this number, 22%. Over a fifth of all Nobel Prize winners have been Jewish. Now think about this. That's from a group that makes up less than 0.5% of the world's population. I mean, that statistic it's staggering. It's an intellectual output that really makes you stop and ask, what's going on here?
So, yeah, that's the big question for us today. How is that even possible? It seems like a total mystery, right? But the answer isn't some kind of closely guarded secret. As the source material we're looking at shows, it's actually a powerful combination of factors. You could almost call it a formula that's been perfected over centuries.
And here's that formula we're going to unpack. It really boils down to three key things: a very unique culture, a specific kind of mental training, and, you guessed it, the intense force of historical pressure. So let's start by just looking at how wide this impact really is.
I mean, it's not like this is just happening in one or two niche fields. We're seeing this kind of outsized impact literally across the board, from hard sciences and medicine to economics and finance, law, philosophy, all the way to literature, the arts, and even modern tech startups. Now, this isn't just a coincidence. It's the result of a system. So let's start digging into that first piece of the system.
So, pillar number 1, the culture of questioning. And I love this subtitle here, where learning is a contact sport. That says it all, doesn't it? This isn't about sitting back and quietly absorbing information. Nope. In this tradition, learning is not optional, and ideas are meant to be wrestled with.
And this quote just nails it. The whole point isn't to just memorize something and then shut up. The goal is to get in there, to engage, to challenge, and to literally wrestle with a concept until you get it from every possible angle. You know, that's such a powerful lesson for any of us trying to figure out a tough problem. Don't just accept it. Get in there and wrestle with it. Now, what's so fascinating here is how this completely reframes what it means to argue. You know, in a lot of cultures, if you question an elder or a teacher, that's a huge sign of disrespect. But here, it's the exact opposite. Challenging an idea is the ultimate sign of respect. It shows you're taking it seriously enough to test it. It's a huge mindset shift, right? One path leads to obedience, and the other leads to real innovation. Okay, so if the first part is the culture of questioning, this second part is the method. How do you actually do it? This is all about training the mind. And you should think of it less like school and more like a gym for your brain. Seriously, a rigorous daily practice of mental weightlifting. And at the very heart of this mental gym is something called the Talmudic mindset. It's a system that's basically designed to make your thinking razor sharp. It trains you to spot inconsistencies, to build an airtight argument, and, this is just as important, to find the weak spots in your own thinking so you can make it even stronger.
So how does this actually work in practice? Well, it's all about layering. You start with just one piece of text, one idea. Then you start adding layers. What are all the different ways to interpret this? What are the arguments for it? What are the arguments against it? What about some weird edge cases? You keep going until you've identified all the potential logical traps. Imagine using that process for a big decision you have to make. It's a system for building total clarity.
And when you think about it that way, it's absolutely no surprise that this exact kind of structured analytical thinking gives you a massive advantage in fields that depend on it. I mean, law, medicine, science, finance, philosophy, business. These are all arenas where the ability to pick apart complex problems is the most valuable skill you can have. But this intense focus on the mind wasn't just some abstract academic exercise. And that brings us to the third and final piece of our formula: historical pressure. Because for centuries, these external forces basically made intellectual firepower a non-negotiable tool for sheer survival. You have to remember, for huge stretches of history, Jewish communities were often forbidden from owning land. They were locked out of many professions. They were pushed into cities and into roles centered around commerce, finance, and scholarship. And all of this created a situation where the most valuable thing you could possibly own was the one thing nobody could take away from you. What was in your head? So here's the bottom line. Necessity forced adaptation. When you can't rely on physical property or political stability, your survival literally depends on what you know, the skills you have, and the people in your network. Your intellect becomes your land, your estate. And honestly, in our crazy, fast-changing world today, that idea feels more relevant than ever.
So, we've looked at the culture, the training, and the history. And now we get to the big reveal. This is where it all comes together. Because the secret, well, it isn't really a secret at all. It's a set of habits, a toolkit that is frankly available to anyone.
And if you remember one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this. This intellectual firepower isn't genetic. It's not some mystical thing. It is the direct result of deliberate, consistent habits that have been passed down. And the best news of all, habits can be learned. They can be copied.
And here they are. This is the playbook. Read deeply, and not just to get information, but to really understand. Question everything, especially the things you think you already know. Argue respectfully to find the truth, not just to score points. And maybe the most important one on this list, teach the next generation how to think for themselves, instead of just telling them what to think.
At the end of the day, it really does boil down to this simple, powerful idea. It's a daily commitment. It's about treating your mind like it's the most valuable thing you own. Because it is. Read more, think deeper, argue better, and never, ever stop sharpening that tool.
So that leaves us with one last thing to think about. If the entire foundation of this tradition is having the courage to ask tough questions, then the best way for us to start applying this lesson is to turn that curiosity on ourselves. So I'll leave you with this. What's the one important question about your job, your life, your own beliefs that you've been just a little bit afraid to ask?